If you're talking about one place that has large numbers of encounters with various forms of weirdness, most people probably think of Skinwalker Ranch. And rightly so. But what if I told you there's another ranch on the US map with just as much concentrated craziness? Today, we'll visit a place that can rival anything out west in the mysterious department. With numerous encounters with everything from heretofore unknown cryptids, vampire children, and would-be murderous invisible entities, could this place, with its staggering range of high strangeness, be a sister location to the infamous Skinwalker Ranch? Arkansas. Not the first place that pops into my head when I think of ranches. But Arkansas actually has 13.7 million acres of farmland, and the average farm size of Arkansas is 363 acres. Not bad. A ranch in Arkansas is exactly where we are headed today, but not just any ranch. This ranch is 600 acres of rolling beauty and horrifying encounters, and was brought to my attention by one of our very own InBetweeners. But he doesn't just know about the ranch. He lives on it. He's been traipsing around and exploring every wooded corner since he was a kid, and for the last 7 years or so has been experiencing all sorts of bizarre encounters of all forms. Literally too many to include in this video, with many of them occurring in full view of witnesses. Now, for reasons I'm sure I don't need to explain, this person does not want to be identified, so we're going to call him John. Boring name, but hard to trace. The ranch actually belongs to John's stepfather, who lives about a mile down the road, but John and his girlfriend live in a house on the property. And since neither John nor his stepdad want people roaming around the property playing ghost hunter, we are not going into detail as to the location of the ranch, except that it's somewhere in Arkansas, not too far from Devil's Den State Park. Now, the backstory to the property is a little complicated, but the important thing to know is that when John was a kid in the 80s, he worked, hunted, and explored this land nearly every weekend. Interestingly enough, John's personal introduction to the idea that the ranch is a stranger place than we can imagine comes when he's just a kid. John's out for a walk on part of the property, a place he generally knows like the back of his hand, when he gets lost. One minute, he knows exactly where he is, but he turns around to start heading home, and everything around him seems out of place and feels wrong. Takes him 6 hours to find the path to get back home. Life goes on as life always does. His mom and stepdad aren't getting any younger, and about 7 years ago, John moves out there to help them take care of it. He's not a full-time rancher, but all of his spare time is spent helping his stepdad manage the land and their 150 head of cattle. About 2 years ago, John's stepfather says, "Hey, we haven't checked out that fence on the back corner in a while. Can you run out there and make sure it's all good?" The area of the ranch that he's talking about is this very back corner where it's so thick with woods that the cattle never go there anyway, and neither does anyone else for that matter. But John obliges him anyway and heads out there the next day. It's a long trek up there, mostly because you can't drive the whole way. The woods get so thick that you have to take the last leg on foot. So after a nice long uphill hike, hacking a path with a machete as he goes, John makes it up there and notices that it's really quiet up there. Kind of eerie, but whatever. He just gets to work counting fence posts to make sure they're all there. He counts to 32, turns around, and quickly heads back out of there because something just doesn't feel right. When he gets back, John tells his stepdad, "I counted 32. And his stepdad says, "No way. There should be way more than that. Count them again." So the next day, John goes up there to count them again, but he gets the same number, 32. Well, knowing there's supposed to be more than that, he starts taking a closer look around. The fence is mostly down anyway, just from the wear and tear of weather and stuff growing up all around it over the years. But he starts noticing a pattern of where it looks like fence posts are supposed to be. And in those spots, he can actually see the holes of where the fence posts used to be that are now all filled in with mud from the rain. But the actual posts are nowhere to be found. Well, okay, I guess we're going to need some new fence posts. He starts his trek back down the hill. He decides to take a slightly different route, pulling out his machete again to cut his way through the underbrush, when he notices a bit of a clearing off to his left, maybe 50, 60 feet away. So he starts hacking his way over there just to check it out. Before he even gets there, he sees what looks to be something metallic sticking out of the ground. As he gets closer, he figures out what this metallic thing is. It's a fence post. And not just one, but lots of them. I guess he found the missing posts.
And there was much rejoicing.
However, there was no rejoicing. These solid metal posts are all bent into a U shape. And as his brain is trying to figure out how did that happen, it dawns on him. Whatever did that to the post could do that to him as well. He immediately raises his shotgun, takes the safety off, starts backing his way out of that clearing. He can feel something watching his every move, and he can feel that whatever it is that's watching him doesn't want him there. The whole area has gone dead silent. By now, he's sweating bullets. He turns around and heads back the way he came to find the old trail he used to get up there. That trail's clear already, and thank God it's downhill. So he books it back to his truck and hightails it out of there. Next day, he tells his stepdad, "Yeah, there's more fence posts up there, but I didn't count them. But don't worry, there's no way that cattle can get out there. We really don't need to rebuild it right now." John's stepfather looks at him with serious eyes and says, "What else did you see up there?" John tells him, "I didn't see it, but I felt it." And guess what? They never quite make it up there to rebuild that fence. But it's not just unseen things. Some of them are quite horrifyingly visible. Around the same time, so about 2 summers ago, John has just finished mowing the yard, and by the time he's done cleaning everything up, it's just getting to be about dusk. In front of his house is a field where a horse and some cows are chewing grass and loving farm life. But something else grabs John's attention. He sees in that same field 2 creatures crawling along the ground. The cows aren't reacting to them. The horse isn't reacting to them. That's weird, but it's getting dark out, so it's hard to tell exactly what he's looking at. What he can see looks like 2 humanoid figures doing a belly crawl over the open field, like their bodies are low to the ground and they're moving with their arms and their legs. And they are huge, like 7 feet tall if they were standing, and weigh probably 400 pounds each. The one in front is bigger than the one behind, but both of them are muscled up, like totally jacked. Like I said, it's getting dark, so John can't make out any specific features, but it's light enough that he knows he's not looking at a cougar, he's not looking at a bear, or anything else that you might expect to see in the backwoods of Arkansas. And if that, in and of itself, isn't weird enough, their heads are shaped like a V-shaped shield, and they both have horns coming off their heads. John runs back to the house to get his spotlight, but by the time he returns, they have made it all the way across the open field and into the surrounding woods. But they are not done yet. Once they get into the woods, they start tearing up the place. He can hear them running through and just tearing everything up. But there's no way on this earth he's going to go in there to find out what they're doing. The next day, with at least having daylight on his side, John goes into the woods to see if he can find any evidence that he wasn't dreaming the night before. And he does. There is a path literally cut through the woods where they had just run through, pretty much bulldozing anything that was standing in front of them. Whatever they were, they had to have been crazy strong and damn near indestructible. No human would have been able to get through that amount of vegetation and forest debris at that pace. John says they are nothing like anything he's ever seen before, and hopefully he will never see them again. On yet another late summer night, somewhere around 10 p.m., John is sitting in his den, which he calls his man cave, rocking in a chair next to the open window, relishing the cool breeze blowing in, totally lost in his own head, when he hears the fence rattle pretty good. He thinks, well, must just be the dogs, but he doesn't hear the dogs. But whatever, and he goes back to what he was thinking about. When he hears one of the dogs outside whining, he wonders, what the heck is the dog going on about? So he gets up and he sees Lola, his pit bull, outside the gate of their fenced-in area, whining to get let back in. And he thinks, well, that's weird. He goes outside, he lets her back in, and she beelines it straight to the house and through the doggy door. Huh. So he starts checking the fence bit by bit to figure out exactly how Lola got out, and finds that the section of the fence right outside where his man cave is and where he heard the rattling noise earlier has been torn out on one side. Now, this side was secured with bungee cords, baling twine, baling wire, and a sturdy little chain to make sure his 3 pit bulls can't knock it down. But something was able to quietly tear the whole side of the fence out. John goes inside and grabs his 10mm pistol, goes back outside through the gate, walks down the driveway about halfway just to see if there's anyone or anything he can see. Nothing. He hangs around out there for about a half an hour, waiting for something to show itself, which it doesn't, before turning around to go back inside. He gets back to the gate, but before he can open it, he sees a dead raccoon laying right there about 5 feet in front of the gate. Wasn't there when he went through the gate to go down the driveway, so it had to have been put there sometime after he went through the gate, but before he came back. Wasn't gone very long, wasn't that far away, and heard nothing. Looks at the dead raccoon, doesn't see any bite marks or blood, like if one of the dogs had killed it and dropped it there like a trophy. He can't see any external clues as to why this raccoon was dead, except it had a look of fright frozen on its face, like it literally died of fright. And John's first thought is this a gift or a warning? He lifts his pistol, ready to shoot at anything that moves. Nothing does. Before he walks back in the house, he shouts to whomever or whatever might be listening, "This is my property. It is my parents' property. These dogs and the cats and my girlfriend, they are my family. If you hurt one hair on their heads, I'll be the one that kills you." But it's not just things happening outside. It's things happening inside the house. And not just to John, but to his girlfriend as well. We're going to call her Katie. One night about 10 p.m., Katie's in the bedroom laying on the bed reading when a movement in the doorway catches her eye. She looks up to see a little cube about the size of a Rubik's Cube with wings flying back and forth from side to side in the doorway. She yells for John, who comes running in, but it's gone. How bizarre is that? But they don't just have encounters of the way out there kind. They have your run-of-the-mill ghostly encounters as well. One day, John's at work in the evening on the second shift when he gets a call from Katie, who's in hysterics. So he says to her, "Calm down. What's going on?" She tells them that she got off work a little late, and this is early springtime, so it's already dark outside. She pulls into their carport, gets out, and hears a voice ask her,
"Want to play in the dirt?"
She looks around, but there's nobody there. She freaks out, runs into the house, and calls John. As soon as John gets home, he searches the whole area. No tracks, no signs of humans, no nothing. Now, that encounter may not sound all that scary. What's a little disembodied voice, right? Well, sometimes their ghostly roommates aren't so friendly. John's a pretty spiritual guy and has crosses hanging in almost every room in the house. One night, he's chilling in the semi-darkness of his man cave and has incense burning throughout the house. The door to the man cave is open, and as he looks out into the dining room, he can see the colored lights that are hanging on the walls and the shadows of some of the furniture and the knickknacks that are around the room. He can also see the shadow of the smoke rising from the incense that he's got burning in there. As he's just kind of zoning out after a long day, those shadows catch his attention. They're moving. John sees the shadow of the cross that is hanging in the dining room rise up off the wall, turn sideways like a hammer, and hurl to the floor with the force strong enough to break the cross, blowing out the incense on its way down. I guess it wasn't a fan of incense. For those of you who flirt with the paranormal on a regular basis, that story might not be that scary, but the next one would have me rethinking my living arrangements. This night, John is again sitting in his man cave. It's about midnight with rain and low thunder rumbles outside, and he is just kicked back in his rocking chair, half asleep, listening to what lurks beneath. Shout out to you, Josh. When he hears some kind of commotion coming from the dining room behind him, like something's being ripped off the wall. Now, it's important to know that the lock on the window in the dining room is broken. John's younger brother lost his key once and he used that window to break in, so now it won't lock. And John has been paranoid about someone being able to get in that window ever since. As he flies up out of his chair and grabs a flashlight, thinking, I knew someone was going to get in that window, he heads straight for the dining room. He cautiously looks around the room, doesn't see anybody in the house, and turns his attention to the window to see that the screen has been ripped halfway off the window, and what ripped it off is still holding it. At first glance, it looks like a kid in one of those Garanimals shirts, faded blue with faded blue and red stripes that now look pink. And he looks like he's only like 10 or 11 years old, but that can't be right. If John were standing outside, you'd only be able to see his head in the window, and he's 6'1". But as he looks closer, he sees it's not a kid. Its skin is gray. Its eyes look like vampire eyes with big black pupils and an iris that seems to kind of change and sparkle. It smiles at John with a mouthful of sharp teeth as if to say, "You caught me." John looks around and sees all of his cats are huddled together on the dining room table. And he thinks, "You're after my cats?" He moves toward the window and this thing takes off at a speed like no kid John has ever seen. Jumps a 6-foot fence, jumps another fence, and keeps running out into the field. John is stunned as he just watches this thing run into the thick night fog. John has a buddy of his staying with him for a while, so he goes and wakes his buddy up and shows him the screen hanging there, half twisted off the window. They go outside and look, but they can't find any tracks. They can't find anything. However, since that night, someone or something tries to rip that screen off 2 more times. John doesn't see anything either of these times. He just hears the ripping noise, only to find the screen hanging half off the window again. Interestingly enough, these 2 screen attacks also happen on nights with that same rainy, thunder, rumbly atmosphere as the first time. John says he wishes he could find a sketch artist who could draw this little kid for him so people could actually see what it looked like through his eyes. And while we are by no means anything close to sketch artists, the extremely AI talented Mr. InBetween took a crack at illustrating what John says he saw that night. This picture is not perfect, but John says it's close enough to give him flashbacks. But not all of the encounters on the ranch are negative experiences. This one's actually pretty helpful. Early one winter morning, about 4 years ago, John rolls out of bed to feed the cattle before he has to head off to work. And early is an understatement. He has to be to work by 3 a.m., so he's up at 1 a.m. to get the morning feeding done before he leaves. Now, it's winter, so he has to go start up the tractor, let it warm up, and then drive it all the way to the hay pole barn, get the hay, and go back to the feeding spot. Well, when John gets up there with his 4-wheel drive to the feeding spot where the tractor's parked, there are no cows. That's weird. They're always there waiting. They know when food is coming. So instead of stopping at the food spot to start the tractor, he keeps going in his truck toward the pole barn just to see if there's anything hinky going on. Now, near this pole barn is a little cabin that John's stepdad's cousin used to live in. She's since passed away, so now they use the cabin just for storage. Well, as he was approaching in his truck, he sees lights up there by the old cabin and cows eating hay right out of the pole barn. So somebody's been walking around and opening the gate for the cows. Definitely hinky. Unfortunately, there's an access point on the dirt road that John lives on and a gate that leads down to this part of the property. And they've had problems with thieves breaking into the cabin and stealing stuff. And he is pretty damn sure that he is catching these dirt bags in the act. He turns off his headlights and creeps his truck closer. He quietly pulls the truck up to the back part of the property, grabs his pistol, thank God he has that with him, gets out of the truck, sees the guys who are robbing the place and yells at them, "What the F you think you're doing?" They turn around, point their flashlight at him, and start shooting. Now, it's dark, there's a pretty good distance between them, and they have a light pointed at him, so he can't actually see them. John fires back, they fire again, so he just unloads on them. The ranch has about 150 head of cattle. When John pulled his truck up there and saw the cows, he parked his truck in front of the gate so they couldn't get out. So the cows are all in this paddock, which is just an enclosed field where the cattle can graze without wandering away. They start running around in circles, like really running. And he's thinking, well, the gunfire must be freaking them out. And while he's standing there, his attention split between the bad guys shooting at him and the mini stampede he has going on in the paddock. A super bright light starts shining down from somewhere over his head that lights up everything like daytime. He looks toward the cabin and can see 3 people booking it toward the dirt road. John is stunned. He looks up, but he can't see any source for the light. There's no plane, no drone, no helicopter. If there had been, he certainly would have heard it, but there's no sound. There's nothing but a light. John jumps back in his truck, which has been running the whole time. But now it's running really rough, and all the gauges on the dash of the truck are going off and on. Just nuts. And before he can even begin to wrap his head around what is going on with the truck, the light just disappears, blinks out, and John's truck goes back to normal. He rolls down the window and looks up in the sky, but there's nothing there, nothing but blackness, not even moonlight. John sets everything right at the ranch and finally gets to work. But everybody can tell he's not his usual jovial self, to the point where his boss actually calls him into the office and says, "Hey, John, what's the matter with you today?" After spilling the entirety of his morning so far, she looks at him and says, "I'm never going out to your place, ever." Now, if you've been a fan of this channel for a while, you'll know one of our unwritten rules is to always trust your pets. They know more than we do. But could that sixth sense go so far as to include a bull? John has a white Charolais bull, which is a French breed of bull, named Snowball, that he has bottle fed from a baby. Like every rancher, he has to get up early in the morning to feed Snowball and the rest of his cattle. And every day after he feeds them, he takes a head count. But one day, his count comes up a little short. Now he's got to go find them. It's still dark outside, so he can't see them anywhere. So he jumps in his truck and heads up to this higher mountain area where he thinks they probably headed. He gets up there toward the top, and sure enough, there they are, Snowball included. And he gets out and he yells, "Get on down the hill and go eat," kind of shooing them along, and they all start meandering down the hill. John stays up there for a few minutes, making sure all of the runaways continue in the right direction. In this particular spot, there is a spring that runs through, and there's a little spot where the spring pools up and makes a little pond of clear water about 2 feet deep. There's a full moon, and the stars are out, and they're reflecting on the top of the pond, making it glisten. Picture postcard perfect. It's one of those moments where if you're paying attention, you become connected with the world around you. That's exactly where John's head is, as he's just standing there taking it all in. When out of nowhere, something smashes into him from the back, tackles him like a football player, and he goes down. As he goes down face first into the pond, his diaphragm hits a big rock and totally knocks the wind out of him. So now his head is underwater and he has no air. And whatever this thing is, it's holding him down. And he's struggling to get up, but it's no good. And he's thinking, what is this? A bear? But that's not right. It's not something standing on him. It's something holding him down. John thinks, this is it. I'm going to die. Just as fast as it attacked him and threw him down, just lets him go. John pulls his head out of the water and just lays there for a few seconds, gulping in air. Just off to the side of him, he hears a snort. It's Snowball. He'd come back up the hill to hang out with John and evidently ran off whatever it was attacking John. Once John's head clears and he gets his breath back, he stands up and looks at Snowball and says, "Thank you, Snowball. You saved my life." And just so you know, John once had a friend and his girlfriend come to visit. It's their first time on the ranch. Neither of them have been there before. They pull up to the house, get out of the car, and before John can even show them around, the girlfriend tells John, "You know you have a skinwalker, right?" That just further solidifies in John's mind that even though he knows what he has seen and what other people have seen, whatever is happening here is real. What does John have to say about all this? While this property is beautiful, it has a dark side that comes out at night when the fog rolls off the mountains. When it gets dark around here, most people go into their house for the night and stay there. I won't be driven off my property by anyone or anything, but I don't leave my yard at night. I don't go anywhere on this land without being armed, because you just never know. I would have been off that property and living in a downtown condo years ago. Kudos to John for standing his ground. We want to give a big shout out to John for sending me his story, sending all of the pictures, being patient while I peppered him with questions as I was getting the whole episode together, and allowing us to share everything with you. Thank you, John. My name is Carol Ann, and if you've got your headlamp on, all ready to explore another creepy area, click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.